We are about to go live.
Great.
We should say live here in a moment. We'll let all of the platforms fire up. All right. So we are live. We've got Matt Faulk, CEO and founder of Basic. I've known Matt for close to 15 years now. We both were young entrepreneurs in the marketing and advertising space, running parallel paths. And Matt has done some really amazing things. He's won, his agency's won more Webbies than any other agency or creative agency that I know of. And we're both San Diego natives. Matt, thank you so much for doing this today. I'll let you give the audience a quick intro and background.
Oh man, pumped to be here. So yeah, hi everybody. I'm Matt Faulk, and I'm the CEO and founder, as James mentioned, of Basic. And we're a branding and experience design agency with offices headquartered in San Diego and a big presence in the Bay Area, as well as a small satellite team in St. Louis. And we're fortunate that we get to work with some of the best brands on earth to help them figure out how to, connect with culture through experiences people care about. A couple of our clients include Google, Under Armour, Herman Miller, Patagonia, KFC, Coach, Kate Spade, Tapestry brands. So a lot of the brands that we all care about and learn to love, we play a part in creating that love.
And it's been, just some of the work that you guys have done on the more on the interactive side of things has always been super fun to watch. And the stuff that you did for the Google hardware, that Google hardware page where, the interactions, the micro interactions, and there's just so many, you guys do such amazing creative work. So, the goal for today's live stream is to talk about the second half of 2020. We've got, this year has been a wild year, right? It's been a wild year
to say the least,
for all industries, but for the advertising industry and for brands, this has been nuts. It's been absolutely nuts. And, I think one of the things that would be really interesting to talk about is the sentiment around what brands or how brands are thinking about the second half of the year. Because what I've experienced was, March was kind of like everything just came to a screeching halt. Everything stopped. Mm-hmm. And then brands had to adapt. A lot of brands adapted their message to be this like, kumbaya, we're here for you.
Yeah.
And then they started getting back to, having their brand purpose and selling. And then it started getting back to, then it went to a whole different, narrative around BLM.
Yep.
And we're still doing that. And we actually just launched a really cool campaign here in San Diego where we're donating a bunch of our placements and donating to the NAACP San Diego chapter.
Awesome.
But one of the things that I think is really cool about this period of time is brands are now thinking about Q3, Q4 and beyond with this notion of whether or not there's spikes or other things that happen related to COVID. There seems to be this refusal of not doing anything anymore. Is that something you're seeing?
Oh, absolutely. I think, especially in our role, a major part of our practice is consulting in the strategy side of the business. And so what we've been working on with our brand partners is really thinking about how they can solve for today while thinking about tomorrow. Because, the brands today need to be able to pivot and move based on what's happening in culture. And I think the two big shifts that we've seen, one, around COVID, and as you mentioned, the kumbaya message things just weren't working. And secondly, around BLM and how brands are kind of speaking up and trying to kind of put themselves in that place. But what they're finding is cancel culture is also kind of calling things out. And I think one of the things we're big on right now is helping brands get back to understanding who they are and the idea of authenticity, right? It's like true brand building again, because people are starting to cut through the bullshit and really kind of looking for ways to kind of connect with their consumers through more authentic ways. And so it's been an interesting thing kind of seeing who's kind of thriving and doing well because they believe the message, and then who they think is just bandwagoning and taking advantage of something that shouldn't be candidly taken advantage of.
Yeah, I think the kind of touching on brand purpose, if your brand's purpose before was purely just profit, that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And if your brand purpose was profit and you're just waiting for things to get back to normal so you could get back to pushing the same narrative, like that's a really just a poor, in my opinion, a really poor strategy. So being more on the creative brand messaging side of things, are you being more tasked with helping find a brand's purpose that might have only really been focused primarily on profit before today?
A bit, I think it's more just helping the brands kind of get back to their core of why they exist in the business and what, they can serve to their customers. And so what we like to do is kind of look for what are the tensions in culture that each of our clients uniquely served to solve, right? And so from that, then you can kind of find your place around the shared values and ideals that you can kind of connect with your audience about through both things that are purpose driven as well as profit driven. People have needs on both sides. And so I think when it comes from that place of authenticity and that sense that customers have a desire for something, that's where, brands can thrive, not just in this moment, but even before, and the ones that have led that way have done it great. You think about Nike and other groups like that, like when they bring a message, it's seen as true and authentic, exactly who they are at their core, because they've lived that mission through every touch point they do. They didn't just jump on a bandwagon to be something. They've thriven through this.
Right. It's the purpose has always been at the forefront.
Yes.
And profit follows that.
Yes, absolutely.
And so as a creative agency, or as an agency that does so much digital and interactive and brand building and brand work for massive brands like Google,
Mm-hmm.
what are the things that you've seen change the most?
And
just the approach and where brand is going in
absolutely
later half of 2020.
I mean, a big focus is obviously around digital transformation, just because no one knows what the world's going to look like in a post-COVID world, touchless interfaces and things. And so direct to consumer, especially around e-commerce, and just brand awareness has been a big thing. And so, for example, we worked with Patagonia on the overhaul of their new e-commerce flagship, but the big focus there was purpose and product, right? It wasn't just about kind of creating a place that was like Amazon to kind of do 3 clicks to checkout. It was about articulating and expressing exactly who Patagonia is at their core, bringing through their stories around how they think about their products and how they manufacture their products, the impact it has on the world, and then ultimately allowing them to kind of be more streamlined and efficient as a business, also to move at the speed of which an e-com business needs to go today. And so that's a big area that we're working with our partners on, is just thinking about how they can reach new consumers, but most importantly, convert them or connect with them again. I think that's a big thing too, is maybe right now isn't the time to be selling, but it's be resonating and connecting, much like you do with friendships.
Well, Patagonia is a really interesting brand case because they were one of the first to shut down like all their retail locations.
Yeah.
I actually happen to live like within a quarter of a mile of a Patagonia store.
Yep.
And I'm a big fan of the brand. How do you when you're working with a brand like that, where they have a tangible good and a big part of their value prop is also like when you touch their product, you could feel how high quality and how good the materials are. How do you, what is changing now on the interactive side with digital that's kind of helping bridge that gap or close that gap that maybe didn't exist before COVID?
No, we'll never fully bridge it. People think about AR and VR and things might help, but the truth is people just have general questions. In fact, we're working with Herman Miller right now on an overhaul of their platform. And much like Patagonia, it's something you want to feel furniture. You want to get a sense for it. And so fit, finish, scale, all these little considerations go into buying criteria. And so one of the things we're trying to help solve is like, what are the kind of purchase considerations people need to know? How do you kind of make it as easy without as much friction as possible to buy? But that's not just through conversion aspects. That's also through education, storytelling, consumer reviews. A lot of different things play a part right now. And so we're reminding clients of those things. It's like, how do you recreate as much as you can the idea of feeling and touching and romancing products so that we can understand how it will fit in their lives? Because ultimately our job is to help augment a reality for them, whether that's through AR or through compelling interactive channels.
Right. And you've brought up AR twice now in the last 15 seconds.
Yep.
AR and VR have been buzzwords for like the last almost 5-6 years. But today I think the value prop of AR for those types of products and the technologies. In fact, one of my fellow 30 under 30s runs a really cool AR company. I'm curious, what's changing there and what's holding it back?
Yeah. Technology adoption has been definitely big, obviously being native to devices and things. So it's much more integrated. Also, the cost of production to create 3D assets and things that you can leverage in 3D or AR has been something that's improved. But I think we're also seeing examples of where it's useful. Some of the stuff IKEA has done has been incredible. Goat has an amazing thing if you're a sneakerhead, where you can actually kind of see on feet with your shoes and kind of get a sense for fashion and stuff. And so I think there are going to be certain industries where it's very helpful, and then those that it's a gimmick, and it's not worth the investment. So I think it's just finding traction just because of time and technological advancements for sure.
Yeah, I mean, being able to see what an accessory, article of clothing, or pair of sneakers looks like on you, or at least what it would feel like if you're looking at your feet with those sneakers on inside of your living room or in your bedroom, it's a pretty cool value prop.
Oh, that's amazing.
So transitioning onto like the business side of things, we both pitch brands. Very different in the way that we pitch brands but there's an intersection of creative that touch both of our companies. And being able to do that in person and being able to have all the people in a room for that pitch, it's pretty hard to replicate that with Zoom. And that's that's one of the challenges that I'm still looking at and trying to figure out how we're going to overcome it in this post-COVID era. But I'm curious, is there anything or any insights that folks like us can maybe glean from some of your recent experiences working with these types of brands?
I'll tell you, the pitch and just client collaboration process has been a bit different. And so what we've been trying to do is get more time with people through digital means, just to kind of build rapport and relationships. So that way you're not trying to get a feel for somebody over an hour-long pitch call. That's been big. We've been keeping the team smaller and then just causing breaks within it to make sure people have time to ask questions. Just interjection and kind of subtle cues such as body language and gestures aren't something that we're kind of getting a sense of in this. We're not seeing the whole body. We're not able to read the rest of the room and the dynamic of what's happening. And so that's one of the things we've been doing, is trying to get more time, asking questions up front, building rapport, and just really trying to understand needs before we kind of waste anybody's time jumping on another channel. And also doing our calls in the morning. Decision fatigue is playing a part right now. And so the later in the day it is, the more sick of Zoom you are. So, or I would say Hangouts and Meet. So got to plug Google a little bit there.
We're a big Zoom shop. We're a big Zoom shop at Rapid Five.
You're lucky you got me on here. No, but it's I think it's just all those things. I mean, everybody's dealing with it, so I think people are empathetic to it. But it is hard, right? Especially if you're trying to do the dog and pony show and stuff. There's just a little bit of a different experience, and the tangibility of things goes away a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, do we turn into weathermen, where we become like doing our pitches and talking about stuff on a green screen and creating that tangible, like I see a world where we're able to drive engagement within these Zoom meetings and be able to create a little bit more tactile, more of a tactile sense to the meeting. And it just isn't there yet. And I think whether it's Zoom or some third party that builds a tool that allows Zoom or other platforms to work well, like I'm really excited about it. I've even tried to like kind of game it myself by using the virtual backdrop and a video in the background and cueing my stuff to the video that's playing.
Oh, damn. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to it's going to spark a lot of creativity in this space. It has to, because I'm sure you with all the different office locations and the clients you serve, you're probably on the road pre-COVID, quite
non-stop.
a bit. I was 2 to 3 weeks out of the month I was on the road. This is the longest stint I've been like not flying on a regular basis, and it's kind of weird, right?
I was going to ask, how's it been for me? It's been driving me crazy. I'm absolutely struggling with it, to be honest.
I'm having a hard time with it too, just because the actual go creates hustle. And when I'm flying somewhere, it creates a different okay, I just sat on an airplane for 5.5 hours. When I land, game on, and it's nonstop, and I'm making sure that I bring the money back home. And that it's hard to do that from your living room or from your bedroom.
It's a whole different thing. And then on top of that, net new and inbound slowed down, and so you're not as proactive. You're not building relationships, checking in on things, just building true human connections. And so but I think, again, the playing field is equal right now. And so it's just, how do you differentiate, but do so authentically? I think for us, when we pitch, we're very much exactly who we are. We actually don't try and do a dog and pony show. It's more about fact finding, discussions, and showcasing capabilities and things. And so for us, we've been just trying to replicate that here. But I think there are some interesting things around technology. It depends on the play, on how you can show creative ideas and innovative thinking and stuff. So I'm excited to see what you do if you can break this whole Zoom thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it as well. I really want to observe what I love. I think the best creative shops really do set the trend for what a lot of us do in the ad tech and martech space, because what we're doing is typically coming off of we're typically coming in after the work that you do has been done, right? If we don't have the material that's been created by your creative team, we're the couriers for taking that and putting it places and making sure people see it. And so, when we see you have to get the brand on board with really a much more abstract thing, and get them to come all the way through to believing in your agency and your creatives, and then in your vision. And I think the folks that are able to adapt to this landscape on the agency front have such a huge opportunity to become like the next monster creative agency.
I agree. It's unfortunate because it's a tough world right now, especially in the ad and brand space, right? Budgets are tighter, things are unsure. There's a lot of shops that were small, gaining momentum, but unfortunately may not have the clients to kind of carry them through during a downturn. And so I think for the groups that can, tough it out, find their unique positioning, set themselves up to bring value to their clients through this time, are going to be the ones that thrive coming out of it. So it'll be a very interesting thing to see kind of how the landscape shapes up here as we move forward, both in just how people reach consumers, as well as how agencies kind of adapt their business models around it.
Yeah, this digitally native marketer aspect of creative, there's been a shift now, because I think the way that you touch people on this rectangle that we carry around in our pockets or on our desktop or connected TV, the attention span and fatigue for that during this period of time is probably going to change when things start to open back up. I mean, in the very beginning of this, one of the things I noticed was I got to a point where I just didn't even want to look at my phone.
Yep.
Like the volume, the amount of minutes, the amount of time. And then when I got my weekly screen report, I was just like, oh,
it's just blown through. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just like, oh my God, it's nuts.
And Did you find yourself? Oh, keep going.
Well, I was going to say then I went through like this separate phase where I actually started to limit the amount of time spent on the rectangles and forced myself to be more active. Because in the beginning I felt like I had to like totally change my sleeping and my workout activity, all this stuff was just different. And then I had to kind of reorganize all that. And that took a period of time. And it took about like almost 2 months into this to where I got my workflow, my work schedule, my sleep schedule, my eating schedule, all that. And I actually started getting a lot healthier and more focused. And I feel like the rest of the world is also doing the same thing. It feels like we've had more pipeline activity in the last 2 weeks and probably the last 3 months. And I'm hearing a lot of the same thing from other from agencies that we work with, more on the ad agency front.
Ad tech and that,
but I'm curious, like, is that something that you're also seeing? Is this something that you're also feeling at your agency?
Yeah, we've we saw a little bit of a downturn just with newbound inquiries, but we were pretty well positioned to help clients through this thing, just because the digital transformation work, the strategic and customer experience work, especially as brands are thinking about how to shift this. And so we actually saw an influx of opportunity in some other areas, and we were fortunate to win some new relationships. But I think it's definitely starting to pick up again, and some of the conversations we were having pre-COVID are starting to kind of resume. But clients are still being very smart, and as a result, our agency is being very smart with how we use our budget. We're being super lean and just doing things to make sure we're maximizing the value we can deliver, even at the cost of profits for us, because our job and as an agency is to help our customers thrive. And so sometimes that means taking a hit on your own mind to foster those relationships and see what comes next.
So I wanted to pause real quick and make sure that viewers know that they can ask questions on the LinkedIn live stream, because I'd like to save a few minutes at the tail end of this for
Yeah, absolutely.
folks that are watching to be able to ask questions. I'm also, I'm curious about your sentiment on remote workforce and how much of that already existed at Basic because you have a pretty distributed and dispersed workforce, and how that's changed.
Yeah,
today.
it's something we're continuously evaluating. Is like the future of work. So years ago, I wanted to kind of create a model where we could access global talent, with efficiency and do all the things that we needed to. And I talked to one of my friends who runs a fully distributed agency with no office spaces. And the thing that he told me though is like one of the reasons why we work is because everyone is distributed. When you actually have clusters of people that can actually kind of foster conversations and have creative collisions and things, then the people that aren't in those rooms fall to the wayside because it goes against the normal behavior to find ways to communicate with them. And so I think while the future of work right now is set up for remote, we're seeing the benefits of it. Everyone is remote. And
Right.
so as we start getting clusters and things again, it's gonna be very interesting to see how that behavior and how you don't have these natural fall offs and things. And so we're surveying, we've been talking to the team about when and how we reopen, and our plans are to kind of keep things closed at least through the end of Q3, maybe even the rest of the year, just to kind of put our people's health first. But as we move forward, it's going to be like, what's the role of the office? It's about camaraderie, it's about creative, it's about culture, it's about alignment, but one of the things that is great is deep thinking, and you get a bit more of that done at home. And so how do we foster an office that can have people kind of doing that, allow people to go work from home, but still establishing consistency and that level of service and accountability that is adamant, and demanded when people are kind of working on different agendas and schedules and environments. So we're going to see what comes from it. We were already set up to work remotely a bit. Our culture was definitely more of an in-office than out-of-office vibe. So I think this has educated me a bit more on opportunities there. So we're going to definitely pivot around some things, but we didn't kill our lease like a lot of people are. So I still believe in the office space for certain things, but maybe I'm old school. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of it sounds like you're in the camp of you either got to go 100% one way or 100% the other, and you can't kind of halvesy it. You can't
No, I think you can halvesy. I think you can. You just got to figure out ways and governance. That's the
Okay.
main thing, and figure out how. Like, if you have project teams, for example, like how about the whole project team is working remote that day, so you don't have 3 on or 2 in and 7 out, like because then you can't align schedules and stuff. So no, I definitely think there'll be a model where we're setting that up for a hybrid.
Yeah, it's because I've been hearing all kinds of different feedback on it, and I too am a believer in having everybody under one roof, because when you have that, like, hey, I want to pop in and ask you a quick question, or you want to collaborate on something really quickly, or just the tactile nature of having people in a room, and the communication that happens with body language, like you can't do that. It's really, you could do it to some level with video.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to do it with video in a group setting and get the same amount of meat out of the meeting.
Yeah, especially as a leader and you have different people in the office and stuff. No, there are definitely nuances to it. You sometimes forget that people are on the video conference when you're actually meeting around without them being the singular focus that they're trying to remotely collaborate. There's definitely challenges there.
Yeah. So I think that I'm curious to see frameworks that are built by different companies and what works, because I am really interested in it. This is something we're going to have to deal with for the foreseeable future, right? So if you do, and as I stumble upon things, I'm going to do what I can to share, and I'd love to hear your feedback on it as you learn more about it. Managing creatives in general is a challenge sometimes, and some of the best creatives are some of the hardest people to manage. And I've learned that firsthand, and not being able to actually be in the room with them when you're working with them is definitely I could see that being a pretty big hurdle as somebody who runs a creative shop.
Our team's pretty accountable, and we've got a really strong people operations team, and our VP of creative, Steve, he's really thinking about this too. And so we're going to kind of learn, we're going to try things, we're going to test, iterate, adapt. We'll find a thing, but ultimately people are what we offer, is time and perspective and thinking. And so we got to find an environment that allows them to foster their best work. And so if they're finding ways to do it, they can show the accountability and the collaboration. Great. I think the work we're doing right now is some of the best it's ever been. And so to that end, it shows that people can be responsible and do things from home, but when it's kind of a hybrid model, it's just going to be fun to work out the kinks.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be a lot of kinks to work out.
Yes,
but at least it's not siloed, right? I mean,
no,
it'd be one thing if it was just like one industry that was having to deal with this, or even one country that was having to deal with this. But like, we're all kind of having to deal with it. You know, we're all having to adapt and change, and I think it just gives you another. It's another place where you can gain a competitive advantage by being better at adapting.
1,000,000%, and get access to better talent and all the things that'll come with it. So you're not just localized, which is, you know, when there's a global world, you can do some cool things.
Cool. Well, I don't want to belabor the call, and I like keeping these short. Is there any questions you have for me or anything else that you wanted to add before we hop over to other questions?
You know, man, no, I mean, I've got another meeting coming up, so I would love just to kind of open up for questions. I mean, you and I can catch up separately. I'd love to hear kind of what you're seeing with your brands and how some of your offerings are uniquely kind of, you're thinking about the back half of the year too. But if there's any group questions from the audience, I'd love to help answer them.
I think one of the questions that's come up is for the brands that have kind of paused or have kind of gone dormant. What is the kind of, is there any recurring nature to that segment of brands in the way that they're approaching creative going into the rest of the year?
I think for them, it's just reminding customers they're there. If they've been kind of quiet, not putting the throttle on and marketing and kind of doing things, I think it's just really focusing on the customers you have and what value you can bring to them. And then from that, kind of creating awareness that you're still around if you have been a little stagnant, a little flat. You know, obviously each little nuance is a little bit different. And so it's just finding your place and rationale of how you're going to kind of weather the storm through the back half of the year.
Another question just popped in about insourcing and an in-house agency model, and do you see, not necessarily basic, but other agencies that are kind of in that ecosystem creating a model that allow brands to create in-house agencies using their framework?
Absolutely. No, I think one of the biggest challenges agencies have is your outside perspective. I mean, it's both your advantage and your disadvantage. And so I think insourcing is actually a great thing. I think there's activation work that just needs to move at the speed of clients' businesses, the domain knowledge, the institutional things that happen, which is why, like our relationship with Google, we have an embedded team. Our team works side by side with them, you know, driving the day-to-day work. Along with that, like Patagonia, they actually instilled themselves in our office with their creative team. Our relationship with Herman Miller, we just assigned directors and a couple designers to the relationship, but then work directly with their in-house team. And so it's just finding the strengths of each group and leveraging their advantage. But insource to continue to happen. It's just how do agencies continue to pivot and bring value outside of just being an executioner or executor? There we go, not executioner.
I like executioners.
Yeah, no, it could be one of them, but yeah, just executing. You know,
we're both executioners in
yeah,
one way,
fair enough.
The imagination.
Yeah, absolutely.
Last question. You know, there's been a lot of talk about you know, the idea of another spike and what that could actually do to the ad industry and creative industry. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you're doing in preparation for that? Whether it be the way that you're approaching your existing brand clients or just structuring the business. Is there anything that you're doing in preparation for another spike, or are you just going to continue pressing forward?
We're pressing forward, but I'll tell you, we have cut almost every single expenditure we can. You know, we are being so smart about how we're looking at our budgets, and just the number one commitment I made to the people is to do everything I can to keep them employed. You know, so we had to put some salary bumps on hold, you know, put some raises and things of that nature for the time being. But, you know, we've been able to tough out the storm when the industry is seeing a huge decline. So internally, that's our focus, is just getting through the year and kind of seeing when things bounce back. You know, we've seen an uptake and we're hoping we can find a moment to release, but you just don't know what's around the corner, especially as an agency that's downstream from things. So as financial rolls down, you're going to see what happens. And then for our clients, it's also just setting themselves up. So it's like, okay, cool. If you're relying on brick and mortar, but things shift back to digital, how are you going to survive and what are you going to do? Does your strategy become just awareness and making sure that people remember who you are, so that way when things open up, you can sell again? Or do you transition your whole business model and start thinking about how you drive digital sales and, you know, all the things that come with that? And so each case is unique, but I think it's about being flexible and able to pivot, setting up infrastructure and operational models that will allow you to pivot. You know, a lot of things are kind of slow based on where you've gotten. And so during this time, I think the companies that are redefining how they work as well as what they're working towards are the ones that are going to come out on front.
Well, I appreciate the sentiment, the questions, and the time.
Absolutely, brother.
I know you've got another meeting to get to. So Matt, thanks again for joining me. For those that weren't able to make the live stream, this will be on our YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Periscope. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you.
Absolutely, bud. Thanks all.